Dear listener, welcome to the Quarter Hour. I'm Wade Kingsley. Today, what Howard Stern lost when he won the battle. So I know you're a fan of Howard. I mean, how could we not be fans of Howard and be in radio? It's kind of in lockstep, right? And I'm still sure that Private Parts would be one of your favourite movies. It is mine. It's worth a rewatch, by the way. There's just so much stuff you pick up years later. I saw this article during the week on Barrett Media. Now, Barrett Media is based out of the US, and Jason Barrett has set up this amazing site and company that talks about radio and media and all things happening in it. And the article was by David Hill. Now, David has spent a lot of time in programming in the US, and he wanted to talk about Howard Stern, and anyone who wants to talk about Howard is a friend of ours. David, welcome to the Quarter Hour.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
I got a quick question before we start. It's winter down there, right?
It is indeed.
And it's summer here. You're wearing a t-shirt and I'm wearing a sweatshirt.
I've got a well-heated home, well-heated studio. That's why. Hey, David, the article that got my attention said when Howard Stern won, he lost the fight that made him matter. That made him matter. Those three words really stood out to me. Tell me about the article and what's your point of view on that?
Well, every good story, every good movie, every good book has a good foe, right? Someone that's the antagonist, someone that really pushes their buttons. And that was always Howard Stern's FCC story. The FCC was pushing him down. The man was keeping him down. It was the management that didn't understand him. It was the FCC that wanted to stop him. And everybody tuned in because everybody wanted to see him fight that battle. It was the everyman battle. Every day he went in there and fought that battle for an electrician, for a plumber, for a guy that's driving a delivery truck, for a guy that's on the radio station in a small market. Everybody could relate to that. And we went over to Sirius XM, and I followed for a while at Sirius XM, but I lost interest because that fight was no longer happening. And it didn't happen for everybody. Some people did stay tuned in, and I could say it's not a bad show. It's a very good show, although only now one day a week. It is a very good show, and it's a different artist, and it's a different show than what it was. Myself, my personal preference, I like the old show.
Yeah, and you say that because obviously he's topical in the last couple of weeks because he has announced that as part of this new deal, he'll be going from 3 live shows a week down to 1. But for you say the content sort of faded a little while ago because the content was never the real issue. What does that mean?
It was the underlying current of what is he going to say next, and is he going to get in trouble? What is he going to say to get himself in trouble? And was I there when he said something to get? Oh, I heard that. Yeah, you wanted to be a part of that mix. And that's what that really relates back to.
Yeah, the tension in Howard's show, I think, is similar to other shows that are set up in the same way. And usually it's that rebelliousness, right? It's that I'm fighting the system. I'm fighting the people that run the system. Yes, I'm on your side. I'm doing it on your behalf. But from a content preparation, and I would even say from a psychological perspective, it's the DNA of those shows, isn't it? That they basically go, the reason for this show to exist. And yes, Howard is amazingly talented. And yes, Howard is funny. And yes, Howard does things to surprise. And yes, he asks great questions in interviews and he's great with celebrities. But the tension is the show. The DNA of a great show should be obvious to not only us as programmers, but it should be obvious to the audience. And I'm just wondering why he would have went away from that. Is it simply because he signed a deal and he kind of got everything he ever wanted?
Well, I don't know, man. It's tough to say what Howard's thought was. Maybe he fought that battle to the part, and maybe that was a legitimate battle. It's tough to say because Howard is very, he's the king of all media and probably historically one of the best shows, if not the best show historically in radio. He understood how to play the audience. He understood how to play the management. He understood how to play the game. When we took away that portion of it, was that calculated? I don't know. Or was he just looking at a paycheck? It's hard to tell what Howard Stern was really thinking when he went over to Sirius XM. But what he did know and what he did do was change the English of the show, which was important because he didn't have that foe anymore. So he had to be reliant upon his interview skills, the show skills. There's only a certain amount of time that you can say profanity on the air and it becomes shocking. And then when he came on, he was, I'm going to say it. And they all said it and everything. And it wasn't shocking. But as the show progressed on satellite, it moved away from that as well, because it wasn't shocking as well. And to be frank, here in the United States, it had already been outshocked. People were doing outrageous things with Opie and Anthony, with other radio stations that are on the terrestrial signal, and also on Sirius XM at that time, just XM. But there were definitely shows that were more shocking than the Howard Stern show. So Howard had to evolve, and he did evolve and became probably the best, or one of the best interviewers, arguably, in the history of spoken media. I'm not saying that was not the case in the article, by the way. And I even mentioned that in the article. He is an incredible interviewer. And he understands how to get into the nitty gritty of that, how to make the interviewer relax to the point they divulge all things they normally wouldn't divulge. All that came about while he was at Sirius XM. But once again, different show.
Yeah. Did the audience reaction reflect what you're thinking? Were the numbers or the hardcore Howard fans that were with him in that fight against the man? Did his audience, I guess, soften as the years went on from when he kind of went to Sirius? Is that kind of been in decline?
Well, I don't know if it was or not. And it's tough to say tail of the tape because we really don't have the numbers to prove it or any ways to make that actionable. We don't have a rating system on Sirius XM. It's just in the netosphere, and who knows how many people are actually. We know subscriber base. I'm sure there's some analytics that are involved over at Sirius XM that can tell you exactly how many people are listening, because they're not running $1 billion corporation without some analytics, or maybe they are. I don't know. It's tough to say. But I will say that it's tough to say if the audience completely gravitated over there. I know much of the audience stayed with traditional radio and terrestrial radio, but there was the hardcore fans that went over to Sirius XM, and it was enough to make an audience and make money for Sirius XM for many, many years. Obviously, they renewed his deal multiple times. So something was working. They weren't just going, well, this is not working out, Howard, goodbye. It was, we'll let you do a show once a week. We'll let you do a show 3. We'll put a studio at your house. You don't even have to come into New York City. You can do whatever you want to do. It's your radio station. Just do it. So I guess maybe it didn't soften, because it was enough for Sirius XM to double down on the deal a couple of different times. And now 1 day a week, and they're still in. So obviously there's an audience there, but it probably is fading away as the time on the air fades away.
Yeah. It reminds me of the line from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where Willy Wonka says, "Hey, Charlie, did you hear about the guy that got everything he ever wanted? He lived happily ever after." And while that sounds like a nice place to be, the personality that Howard is effectively an unhappy person.
Right.
The persona, the character. And yeah, I remember seeing Howard on David Letterman. I'm going to go back sort of almost 30 years now, I think. And I remember David asking Howard, who are your radio heroes? Who are the people that you look up to? And Howard's response was his character to a T. It was nobody. No one has ever done anything interesting on the radio before I came along. It's me. I'm the one. And I think character and persona in terms of personalities is so critical, because effectively as an audience, we're attaching ourselves to that. And I don't know about you, but we've got a very similar situation happening in Australia at the moment, where Kyle, who was part of a very successful morning show in Sydney for about 25 years or so, was with Jackie O. That show has blown up. We don't need to kind of go over the detail of why it's blown up or how. But Kyle is now about to enter effectively a paid environment. He's going from free terrestrial broadcast radio, obviously ad supported. He's now going behind his own paywall. He's signing up subscribers to $99 Australian a year. He is having his own, everything he ever wanted. He's having his own world. There are no censors. There's no FCC equivalent to fight. He had a group of angry people lobbying advertisers of the radio station saying he's crude and awful and don't support him. He now has everything he's ever wanted and he's got the freedom. The question I have in my mind is, does he have someone to fight? Does he have an enemy? Is he still going to be the same person? Because obviously radio listeners are habitual and people who listen to the radio are more likely to keep listening to the radio. We know that. But the big challenge is the thing that made you successful not just the fight, but who you're hosting the show with and all the elements of it? Does that habit for the listeners jump across with you into an environment where they're now paying for it instead of being free? So I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, to that fact, it doesn't necessarily have to be a faux exterior of the show. It could be something with interior of the show, but there definitely has to be a faux of some sort. So he certainly has some challenges ahead of himself, as Howard did himself, and Howard reinvented himself in a new millennium. And perhaps the same will happen there.
Yeah. Just last question from me then. So what do you think about, in general terms, obviously Howard's a good example of this, but people who started listening to Howard, let's say way back in the 80s or even earlier, and at the time they were rebellious and young like Howard was. And over time, as we know, people's tastes and attitudes and personalities evolve. And the Howard that we see now, sort of in a mellow state, interviewing celebrities and not really being antagonistic on purpose or as part of the character, but just perhaps a more evolved version of himself. Boring?
That's what that is. It's not that Howard's boring. It's just that's not the same. I want the old Howard Stern.
You want the old one, yeah. That's a curiosity to me because, as much as our music tastes change, and I know you do a lot in the music industry, so do our tastes for content. So, the one thing that I keep thinking about is maybe the audience has aged with him and maybe they're okay with that. But to your point, yeah, it's not the same show. It's boring.
It is. And if you want the new Howard Stern show and you're happy with it, that's great for you. I'm speaking from Dave Hill's point of view, who was a Howard Stern fan back in the 90s and crossing the millennium, and it lost me eventually.
Yeah.
And not that it's not a good show, it's just not the show that I expected and I had tuned into on terrestrial radio.
Makes sense.
And that's the antagonist.
And that's the antagonist, absolutely. Dave, thanks for joining us today on the Quarter Hour. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Dave Hill there from Barrett Media. Now, you can find his column at barrettmedia.com. That's BARRETT media.com. Dave is the music editor there. He writes columns and features. He also runs his own marketing company called The Tune Farm, Tune Farm, built to help artists and brands connect in the same way that great radio always has, by creating connection, not just impressions. So you can have a look at barrettmedia.com to read David's article. He's got some great stuff on there, and I really like that point of view because obviously it's quite relevant to us in Australia right now as Kyle embarks on this journey where he thinks his fans will just come across and pay for something they've always got for free without Jackie O. I think it's a massive watch this space, particularly if he's got everything he ever wanted and all the people around him that love him, and there's no arguments, no fights, no man to fight. That's it for the Quarter Hour today. Tomorrow, another new episode. In fact, we're going to be talking to the one and only Christian O'Connell. Now, Christian has done something that no one has ever done before. Go from number one in the UK to number one in Australia on the morning radio scene. So we'll be talking to him. He's got a new book out. We'll chat about that. And then next week, a lot of new episodes for you every single day. 15 minutes of radio every day. That's the Quarter Hour. We'll see you then.